All right, so we're at lesson 5. Now you've been doing basically a bunch of contour drawing. Hopefully you've been learning to do memory drawing. Memory drawing is easily the top #1 thing to practice to improve your ability to draw. It is an amazing, amazing boost to your skill to draw. For some reason, it seems to kind of undo a lot of the things that your brain is trying to do. So yeah, definitely practice it. Even if it feels weird and it looks weird, trust me, it totally works to improve your drawing skills. Now in this one, this is a painting I did of a scene. I took a photo and I just did this painting on stream, 10 minutes. We're using Rebel, right? And what we're really going to try to do in this lesson is just this little drawing down here. That's it. That's the whole goal for this lesson is see this little drawing down there? That's all we're aiming for. Notice it's almost like the sketch before, but I'm going to show you how I do measurement. So it's a measured version of the sketch. As long as you keep practicing attempting to measure in the way that I show you, and I talk a lot about how you lock your arm, you lock your head, you lock your eyes, I give you all the things to help you move your measurements forward, then you can take what you do with sketching and kind of make it a little bit more accurate, a little more real. And it's all about time. Just every day, make it a little more accurate, a little more real. Then exercise 6, I go through here and I basically use the shading to make it look like closer to the real scene. But again, not exactly like it. That's not our goal for this series. Our goal for this series is get you drawing and get those first hurdles out of the way. So that way you have the ability to continue on with any style you want, any kind of drawing you want. All right, hope you enjoy it. Okay, so today I want to talk about like being accurate, which I think is something that I obsessed over, and I think a lot of people who are programmers are definitely going to obsess over. And how you can, like, first off, why it's not as important as people think, and then ways to initially kind of improve your accuracy. What makes you more accurate over time, and then eventually, in a couple lessons, I think. We'll talk about a style of drawing that's the most accurate and the easiest for most people to do. It's called a sight-size drawing. But I think of sight-size drawing as like a good training method, and if you have to be dead accurate, then it's good. But otherwise, insane accuracy is kind of overrated, right? So the first thing to talk about, right? Okay. So if you look at a lot of art, say we're going to do a little fake graph, right? And if you look over here, this axis is expressiveness, right? And this axis here is accuracy. I'm just going to do that. You have some art that is not expressive and not accurate. So that's going to be basically like not very good art, right? It's going to have like almost nothing to it, and it's not going to be very accurate. That's kind of like where a lot of people's initial drawings are, right? And what you're aiming for is somewhere in this range, right? Somewhere around here. So if you take some stuff that, like let's say Monet's paintings, they're actually pretty accurate and also pretty expressive, right? Because he's changing the colors. So let's say they're like middle accuracy. And you can kind of judge how accurate something is by whether people recognize it or not. Like if it's trying to be a thing or not. So if you look at Monet's paintings and Renoir and Toulouse-Lautrec, any of those guys from like the late 1800s, early 1900s, they were almost on purpose not trying to be photographic, right? Super accurate. They're trying to be more expressive. And it's kind of, these two things sort of pull against each other. Like it's very difficult to do this, to be up here, to be very accurate and also very expressive. Usually the only way you can do that is with figures and kind of doing something very risque and stuff like that. You know, naked people and doing orgies. There's artists that actually do that too. And then when I think of expressive, I think of it as more like how much do you make people think, good or bad, right? There's some people who do art where all they care about is making you think, and that's where the dude like piles garbage on the ground, calls it art, right? So when you think of accuracy, a lot of people who are just starting out, they want to be highly accurate, very, very accurate, right? They want to be as far on this edge as they can. And so that just takes practice and time. Accuracy is really just a factor of time. Like, how much time do you have to actually keep working on the drawing and making it more and more accurate? How much time do you have to keep practicing? But expressiveness is kind of like just a factor of like taking risks, like just going for it and seeing what happens. And so there's usually some kind of sweet spot in the center, right? Where like you're not crazy accurate and you're not just flailing around on the canvas like a random idiot, where you're being a human who's kind of like in between, not too accurate, like you're not trying, because it's very hard to be accurate and all expressive. So you're trying to express yourself and kind of do what you need, but then also trying to maintain accuracy, right? And typically it'll be a lot of, say, impressionist paintings and things like that are kind of more in this middle range, right? This is kind of like impressionism. You're going to get a lot of the more process art, they call it, or modern art. It's going to be more around this range, right? It's going to be highly expressive. And when the people do that art, what they're doing is they're kind of working the surface, you would say, where like what they're doing is they paint and then they kind of go with it. They put what seems to be random on there and then they go with it and they work the surface. They might scrape it to see what comes out, you know. So this is a lot of like modern arts over here. This is kind of like more impressionist arts there. And then, you know, over here, this is where you have like a lot of the classical realists. They're trying to hang out down here where they don't care about altering the color. Everything has to be dead accurate. They're trying to replicate a photo. And this is fun to try to do, like to kind of push yourself up here. And I would say, even if you want to do art that's over in these areas, right, where you want to kind of make art that isn't accurate at all, and is pretty expressive, it helps to learn to make paintings in this area or to make drawings in that area, because then it gives you control, gives you confidence, right? You can just choose to not be that way. But it's also, it kind of helps you, because if your goal is to do this, it's hard to tell the difference between someone who doesn't know what they're doing and someone who does, right, in this area. You get this a lot. You get people who go like, oh, my 5-year-old could have done that. But the difference is, if you practice, you train doing this, where you're in this range, you have a background, like a history of doing, oh, I can totally paint. I choose to do this. I choose to do these things. Then that's different. People perceive that differently, right? So you're not just doing it because you suck. You're doing it because that's a conscious choice. And it seems irrelevant, but it does really matter, right? It matters. You can do this. You choose to do that. This is more of a power play, right? You know, it's kind of like I shave my head because I'm going bald, right? No, I shave my head because I'm a cool dude who shaves his head, right? It's a conscious choice. So it's sort of the same thing, right? So when we talk about accuracy today, we're not shooting for this photographic accuracy, right? We're going to try to get accuracy that, if, let's say you think your paintings are down around here. Your paintings are not very, your drawings are not very expressive. They're not very accurate. That's fine. That's exactly where you should be, right? What you're shooting for, you know, maybe over the next few weeks, is to move your paintings on the accuracy scale and try and experiment sometimes on the expressiveness scale, right? So I'm going to give you some techniques to use today, and also talk about, you know, even just the concept of accuracy, to get you kind of more down here, right? As you practice, you get down here. Now, what's interesting is, if you've been doing the contour drawing, you probably started here, right? Let's change the color. So you probably started here. Like your drawings are probably way off. And then I showed you the tricks, or like I turned things upside down, and suddenly your drawings are down here with just nothing more than turning the face upside down. Suddenly you can draw the face pretty well. So accuracy, in a lot of ways, right, is a process of kind of, like I said, turning off helpful, quote unquote, helpful things in your brain. And things like recognizing faces are very helpful. Being able to see in 3D is very helpful. Being able to like change the size of things that you're trying to hit or shoot at is very helpful. In drawing, those three things are not helpful at all, right? So having a face summarized for you so you can memorize it makes the face look cartoonish, right? Having like being very accurate with a rifle or with a bow or something like that means that everything gets bigger when you go, I have to be accurate. So that needs to be turned off, right? That doesn't help you in drawing. And seeing things in 3D doesn't help you at all, because you'll see yourself doing this all the time. And when you look at pros, they have their heads straight and they close one eye so that they get a 2D version of it, right? So the no hair example is great. Yeah. It's true. If you go read about Picasso, right? Picasso was making paintings that, he was using latex house paint, right? And if you read, Salvador Dali was like a friend of his, a contemporary, and Salvador would make fun of him constantly because Salvador Dali was a very, very good painter, and he was an incredibly accomplished painter, right? And Picasso learned to paint and draw when he was a kid because his dad was an art teacher, but then it was like, I don't feel like doing that. I'm going to do something different. So whenever people made fun of him, he's like, yeah, I could already draw and paint really well. I choose to do it this way. And that changed the way his art was perceived, right? So when we talk about accuracy today, it's going to be just pushing how accurate you can be as an exercise, but then finding your accuracy where you want and making sure you're not picking that area of accuracy because that's the best you can do as sort of like an escape hatch, right? Like one of the points of art and programming and writing and music is to kind of explore who you are. And if you're like afraid of being accurate and you're going to go, oh yeah, I'm going to be a process painter and make garbage because you're afraid, well, then you're kind of missing the point of art. The point of art is to go, well, can I go this far? Okay, well, I know like this is kind of my limit right now. Okay, well, can I make that expressive? Where can I land in this range, right? So for me, I have to work on my drawing all the time. Color for me, no problem. I'm like bang on, super good at color. Drawing, I always have to work on it, right? But I went from being able to draw like this garbage to actually doing like photographic level, and then just didn't like it. Like I don't like the insane amount of time it takes. Like I said, accuracy is really a function of time. There's no techniques. There's nothing that really make you more accurate. Just time is the only thing. It just takes forever. And I did a drawing of this one cast. It came out exactly like a photo. It was like amazing with the pencil. And I hated it. It was 6 months long to sit there with a little pencil and I'm going like this for like 6 months. It was the most excruciating bullshit I ever did. And what really tipped the scales for me, and that it's good to learn accuracy so that way you have control and can be more expressive and still do what you want, was that after I was done doing that 6-month painting, I was also learning pastels on the side. And I just threw up a piece of pastel paper, did a drawing real quick, and then banged out almost a better drawing in like 40 minutes. Because pastels are just way better than pencils, right? But if I hadn't done that 6-month drawing and become very accurate, that pastel wouldn't have come out the same, right? Because I basically trained, and then by the time I was done with that drawing, I could just do pastel, no problem. So that's what we're going to try and do today. We're going to try to give you some techniques to move the needle. Let's say you're here, we're going to try to move the needle over here. That's your goal. We're not trying to get crazy photographic, because we're going to learn another technique that is actually able to get you very photographic. But again, and some people really like this, it's a very slow, methodical process. It's meditative. It's like measuring things in very meticulous order and then, shading it and stuff like that. Some people really enjoy that, and it is enjoyable. But if that's not your jam, you should still do it, so that way you can kind of have freedom and control and do what you want, right? And then the other thing to point out, there's some people who like to think that if you're not flailing around like an idiot, you're not making art, okay? And I side more with the idea that as a human, you kind of embody both at the same time, both the very mechanical, accurate aspects of art and also the expressive aspects of art. And so whenever I see people who are like, and also these people seem to like right brain, left brain bullshit, that doesn't apply anymore. That's been completely debunked. There's no such thing as right brain, left brain. We have these amazing devices that can actually watch people think and do stuff, and it's complete bullshit. Let's see. So in Tibet, Buddhist monks draw these things. It takes them days and days and days, and they go very slowly. very methodically and meditatively. So the problem with the idea that the only way you make expressive, emotional, religious experience kind of art is if you're flailing around randomly on a canvas is bullshit, because those same people who believe that also think that this is like very spiritual art, right? Is very from the heart. So this takes forever, and it's not random, and they're not flailing around. They're very meticulously drawing what they want. So anytime you run into someone who's like, oh, well, that's just a painting, it's not art. And trust me, they're all over the damn place, and usually they're basically older. Just go, oh yeah, well, it's just like those Tibetan monks, for like 2 whole days, they're there just flailing around being idiots, and they'll be like, what do you mean? Ooh, when they do a mandala, it's like 2 or 3 days of work. So obviously it's it's not art. It's not expressive, because it takes them forever. If it takes you forever, if you have to go slow and take your time, it can't be art, right? So these guys aren't doing art. No. And they have a hard time dealing with that, because it basically points out that the only thing that makes something art or not is if you call it art. The bar for something being art is so low that everyone watching right now, congratulations, you're all artists. Ta-da! All the stuff you made that you don't really like, that's art. Fantastic. Welcome to the art world, right? Nobody can tell you you're not an artist or that what you make is an art. But pointing out that it takes Tibetan monks like days and days and days to make these paintings just basically disproves the idea that flailing around on the canvas suddenly makes you some kind of artist. And there's a whole historic reason why they believe that, and it was like actually this weird marketing push from art galleries and the art sales to try to sell art. And also the CIA funded a lot of it. It's really weird. It's a crazy ass story. It's like one of the weirdest stories you ever did. But anyways, so that's the thing to keep in mind. You want to push your ability to draw accurately just so you gain control. And then do what you want after that. If you love to make very highly accurate art and that's your thing, cool, that's your thing. If you want to use that skill to make process paintings where you're just working the surface, cool, but that's your choice, and that gives you control. And it gives you an ability to express yourself the way you do, instead of just expressing yourself because that's your limitation. Does that make sense? Hey, how's it going, Emsidick? Yeah, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain came out in the 70s, so it's before that, we all know. Before we knew that actually there's no connection, there's no right and left side. And that sort of fits in with this weird thing where people love to make these arbitrary distinctions between them and the people they don't like. So in the programming world, it's like there's coders and there's programmers. Dude, there's no separation. There's coders and programmers, same damn thing. But they like to make that separation. So you'll find people from the 70s to early 2000s are very into, well, there's right brain people who are like this, and there's left brain people who are like that. It's bullshit. You use your whole brain all the time. There's no left and right brain kind of bullshit. You can learn to draw. It's just mostly a historic accident that you didn't learn to draw, or you learned one thing or the other, right? So that's the thing to keep in mind, right? You're an artist. Yes, everyone's an artist. And it's just, you just say it's art. That's it. That's the only requirement. And it's sort of like, I don't know, that's nice, right? But as a programmer, I'm sure a lot of people watching are programmers, I bet you want to be accurate, because that's sort of like a programming thing. You want to have that kind of accuracy, right? So let's look at this painting I did. It's a chroma key, Aka. All right, so let's look at this. I'm going to go over here. So this is, 20 minutes, right? This is a 20-minute painting, just in black and white. And there's sort of a process to learning any medium, all right? So I'm learning digital. I'm not a digital artist, right? So I'm learning how to do digital art. And so that means I got to learn how brushes work, I learn how tools work, learn that stuff. So the process to learning a new medium is use it black and white. So don't do color yet, right? Just do black and white. So I've been doing a lot of black and white paintings, a lot of black and white just monochrome stuff, just monochrome, right? And trying to find what works in the world of digital art. So if I was to do the same painting with oils, it would be totally different. I wouldn't do it in black and white, because I know oils very well, right? But watercolor, I'm not very good at watercolor, so I might do it in black and white, right? So this is the thing, even when you do go to learn, like say you want to learn watercolor, you want to learn pastel, you want to learn oil, just do monochrome for a really long time until you actually get very comfortable with it. And then doing color is actually not that hard after that. Okay, so with this, it's, yeah, you can kind of see what's going on, right? It still looks kind of cartoonish. It's not super accurate. I'd say it's, perspective is there, but you know, it's pretty inconsistent in some areas. And part of the reason is I stopped about halfway through. But what you can see, right, is, yeah, like if you look at this, what is it? Oh, it's like a couple trees and the sun's over there, and that's like that, right? No problem. Okay, so there we go. The accuracy scale on this is, let's say percentage-wise, it's 30-40%. But that's kind of all you need for people to recognize stuff, okay? So that's the first thing about accuracy, is the only thing that matters, really, is that people recognize what you want them to recognize, okay? That's really the only thing that matters. It's sort of like when in English writing, the only rule in English writing is don't be unclear, right? So that's how almost every grammar rule is all about don't be unclear, which is really hard in English because it's just a really inconsistent language, right? All right, so this is accuracy. Now I'm going to show you the photo. And this is, we're going to see sort of what's going on. It's in my downloads. Let me just look at it. It's just a photo I took. All right, so this is the photo. So you can see it's not accurate at all, right? This would actually be a kind of a difficult photo to do accurately because the way the light is over here kind of adds this, if you look, kind of adds this sort of screen over everything because the light permeates everywhere. So see how this is kind of like, and also the camera lens will add this sort of like reflective element to it, right? So you can see you'd have to really struggle. Like if you look, this color is actually kind of a yellow. And we'll talk about like viewing colors doing this, right? So if you were to actually sit down and try to draw this, it'd be pretty hard. There's a lot of details. But what I did is I just ignored all the details, and it's a 20-minute painting tops, and that's it, right? So now when you see this compared to this, you can sort of see, oh, the accuracy is actually more like 10%, right? If you see only the painting on its own, people recognize, like, oh, that's a painting, that's down there, it's a sketch, right? They go, okay, that's pretty accurate. And you go, this is what I use. They go, oh, well, no, you're totally wrong. This is there, and there's this thing, and there's that. And look, you didn't get this leaf over there, and those leaves over there, right? But none of that matters, right? So this is the first sort of lesson about accuracy. Paintings are more accurate when you don't share the photo. Just magically, they're more accurate, right? Because nobody can actually see the thing you're comparing to. The second you include the photo, then suddenly they're going to have all these, like, it basically ruins your painting when it comes to like getting people to look at it, or it comes to judging it yourself and whatnot. So as you're learning to draw and trying to be accurate, remember, you really should look at the painting on its own after you get to a certain point, right? Because the actual photo or whatever you're using doesn't really matter once you have this kind of basic layout done, right? So that's the first one. The photo tends to lower your accuracy, right? Now, next thing is, and this is sort of relevant to actually game development these days. Accuracy isn't really that great. In landscape paintings, there's so much detail in landscape that you're never really going to be super accurate. But you could load this into this program and you could trace every leaf. You could spend years tracing every leaf, making this as photographic as possible, tracing every single thing, doing every single thing, and you would replicate this whole thing, right? But weirdly, it wouldn't seem more real than if I kept working on this and kind of pushed it and made it as close as possible. But you know, like I said when we had the little graph, right? So like if let's say the painting right now, that black and white one, is kind of more like, it's more like this, right? It's not very accurate, but it's pretty expressive, right? So if I wanted to push it more down here, right? Once I got to like this sweet spot, there's this weird phenomenon where things that are not really accurate, like you're not really as accurate as a photograph, but they have, and they're not super expressive, but they're at this sweet spot where people will see them as more accurate. Like even though they're still expressive and the brush strokes are still there, there's this sort of like middle point or most visual experiences where people perceive it as real. And sometimes it's because they step back, and when they step back, the things kind of merge together and their brain sort of rebuilds it, and then they step forward and it looks abstract, right? And you can see this in a lot of like John Singer Sargent paintings. Like if you ever get a chance to go see a John Singer Sargent, go up really close and you'll see like he just has these like chunks of paint on cloth and stuff like that. And then you step back and they snap together and it looks totally real, right? So the second thing to remember about accuracy is that more correct, right? So you think if I can just go over here, no one can tell me my painting sucks. If I was just right there, no one can tell me my painting sucks if I'm just super duper accurate. So you spend all this time being accurate. And what ends up happening is when you're over here, it doesn't really look right. It's just a weird phenomenon where this doesn't really make your painting more accurate. So the way to say it is more correct, weirdly, doesn't make it more like accurate, more recognizable. For some strange reason, when you're actually around this range, that's when people start to see it as real. And when you start to push past that, it gets weird. It's that uncanny valley thing, right? Where like, hey, oh wow, that's a really, really, what is that? That robot is so strange. Okay, now it's better, right? And you see this in gaming too. Go play some old games, right? The older games like 2012, 2017, for some reason they seem more real, even though you totally can tell that they don't. You're able to just kind of forget that. They seem more real. Then you go play games that are coming out now, and they don't look better. Like they look washy and they don't look more accurate. They still look weird, but now they're just like, it takes too long to do the processing and whatnot. So they have to do all sorts of weird tricks, temporal aliasing and stuff. So that's the thing about accuracy. More correct doesn't necessarily make your painting better or more accurate. There's a sweet spot you're aiming for where it's in the middle, and then you let the person looking at it sort of, their brain will just put it together for you. Just trust people that they're smart enough to figure it out, is another way to put it, right? Okay, so that's the initial lecture on accuracy. As a fellow programmer, I know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to try to make everything as correct as possible. And that's cool. Do that for a while, but just keep remembering that doesn't actually make the painting look better or more accurate, right? It's an exercise, and then you want to hit that sweet spot in the middle where it's this balancing act of not every single pixel is there. You're pretty rough on edges and there's like not everything, but for some reason people think it's super accurate and they like it and they can experience it and they sort of like have a conversation with it instead of you dictating to them every single pixel, right? Okay, so some things you can do for accuracy. So, right, so what we're going to do, we're going to actually now learn measuring techniques and things that you need to do in your drawing to sort of like solve issues or problems. All right, so let me do a new painting. New. And I think I need to stack it because I'm limited on I'm kind of limited by because I have to show you how to use your pencil to do like measurements, but I don't have a pencil in the digital world, so I gotta invent a way for you to learn this accuracy. Okay, and then I'm gonna take that drawing or that photo. Right, we're gonna see if we can kind of make a new layer. We're gonna make kind of like a drawing simulator. Let me see. Let's put it on the bottom or the top. Yeah, let's put it on the top. Okay, I want you to just imagine that you're outside and you see that, and then you're going to draw what's down here, okay? So we're just going to imagine using a pencil, paper, everything. Okay, let me get caught up on... Let's see, I used to draw a lot. I took animation in school and did tons of hand-drawn animation storyboarding. Giving it up, I had the passion sucked out of me in school and work. Well, that's sad, man. People told you you're not good, creative enough? Fuck them, man. Yeah, there was a whole era where where there were people who were trying to shame anyone who wanted to learn to draw accurately. I don't think that applies anymore. I think these days people are, because of the internet, you can find an audience for anything, right? See, I was doing graphic design. I remember my boss constantly telling everyone I was too technical to be a designer. The fuck? I ended up quitting that place when he sabotaged one of my projects because he thought I led it in the wrong direction. I later heard that the project was 1.5 years behind. He admitted that I was right from the beginning. Yeah, fuck him, man. I guess I got tired of trying to prove myself to people who already made up their minds. Was that because you could draw? Like you could be technically accurate, so then they couldn't? Because I know a lot of art schools just don't teach it anymore. Which is dumb, because like the entire point of... So the thing to just remember that I'm trying to lay on you is that if you are very good at you get better at drawing, that gives you the freedom to say what you want, right? You're not held back by some limitation of skill. That's the whole point. If you then want to continue making really cool drawings and really nice drawings, you can. If you want to go and make process paintings, you can. If you want to make paintings in the middle, where you're doing more impressionist paintings, that's kind of what I like, you can, right? And I think the flaw of art education, still today, but not as much, is that they made it seem like learning to draw accurately made you a robot. And that's why I like pulling up the Tibetan mandalas, because I'm like, oh, really? So you think these guys are robots? And they have this like logic error, right? It's like Asimov, like an Asimov book, and they violated their rules in their brain, right? Where they're like, suddenly now they have to contend with the problem that, oh shit, well, those monks, well, I mean, but the monks, they take a long time, and they're meticulous, and but they're and the thing's not tight, you know. But your drawings are tight, but you know, theirs is art, but it's not art. See, and then that gets shut down, right? And it ultimately, like, just do what the fuck you want, right? Okay, so let's move this up a bit. Kind of got to get it about there. All right, so the first thing, we're going to talk about accuracy, okay? So accuracy. The first thing is you kind of have to pick your battles, especially in a landscape. You're not going to get every little thing, right? So you want to kind of figure out what's important. Like what are the most important things? So for me, the most important thing was, and let me make sure I lock this layer so I don't draw on it. Okay, the most important thing for me was that there, right, the center, and then the two trees. Okay, so that's what I was shooting for. Everything else is in service of that. Okay, so that's the first thing. You have to figure out what do you want to be like in there, and that's what you need to make the most accurate. Okay, now the next thing is when you want to draw a 3D scene, you need to close one eye. Okay, and right now you can kind of test this out. If you have a pencil, take your pencil, right, and put the tip of the pencil on like anything. Like I'm going to put it on my camera, okay? And close one eye, whatever eye you want, right? Okay, so put the tip on some point, okay? Now switch your eye. And what you'll see is the pencil will go bunk way over there. Now, one of your eyes, the pencil won't move, and one of the eyes, it'll move a lot, right? And the eye where it doesn't move, that's your dominant eye. So let's find your dominant eye right now, okay? So both eyes open, and let's do this, okay? Both eyes open. Okay. Keeping your eyes open, put the pencil, and you want to stretch your arm out. You can do this a lot. Totally keep this locked. And then put the tip of the pencil on the thing, okay? So that the tip of the pencil is like, let's say I'm doing my nose or an eyeglass. You can see the pencil and the thing accurately on there, okay? Not on my face. So imagine I'm like drawing a person, right? Okay. Now, looking at the thing, not the pencil. So focus your eyes out at the pencil. Close one eye. Does the pencil move over there suddenly? Okay, now close the other eye. Back and forth. Okay, the eye where the pencil moves is the eye you do not want to use. That's your non-dominant eye. The eye where the pencil stays still is the eye you want to use. That's your dominant eye. This also applies when you're learning to shoot a bow or anything, right? That's your accuracy eye. Okay, so for me, it's my right eye, and I'm right-handed. Okay. If you're left-handed, it's probably gonna be your left eye. I don't actually know. The cursed ones are the people who are like they're right-handed, but their left eye is dominant. That's, yeah, good luck. In drawing, it's not a problem, but in almost everything else, that's a real pain in the ass. Okay, so let's do it again. And I'm gonna do a drawing to kind of give it another look. Why did that move? All right, okay, so imagine there's like let me get this. Imagine there's like a thing over here. Let's do the liner. And okay, there we go. And you have a pencil. Okay, you put the tip of the pencil right there on the thing. Okay, so that's a pencil, trust me. Now, and both your eyes are open. You look at the thing, not the pencil. Put the pencil between you and the thing. Okay, both eyes are open. Now close one eye. If the pencil goes like this, it jumps over here, that's not the dominant eye. If the pencil stays there, that's your dominant eye. Okay, so that's the first thing for accuracy. Always use that eye. Use your dominant eye all the time and close the other eye. This is going to do two things. One, everything is going to match what you see in 3D, and it's not going to move around. You wouldn't believe just how big of a difference that makes, okay? What typically happens when people are drawing, they do make two big mistakes. They move their head around, which is normal, right? Because you want to see that. You got to draw the side of that thing, so you want to see it, okay? That's the first habit we have to break. The second thing they do is they keep switching their eye. And even if you do that right now, look at something right now, switch your eyes. You see them move, right? You see the thing move. And believe it or not, that little bit of movement will completely bone your drawing. Your drawing will be totally screwed up. It's just really messes you up, okay? So, first thing, head still, dominant eye. Do your drawing. If you find out that you're like, I totally think that thing was there and then it moved, did you use the same eye? Right? If you have a hard time like struggling with it, maybe go get an eye patch. I'm not joking about this. Like if you want to be crazy accurate, force yourself to close your bad eye, right? Your non-dominant eye. Now, interestingly, if I remember right, that eye that's not dominant, its purpose is to judge distance. So it's also, you're getting one extra. It's like your dominant eye figures out where things are, and this eye figures out how far away they are. It kind of goes like that, right? And so you're also getting the added benefit of that eye can't really trick you into thinking things are closer than they actually are. All right. Okay. So step one, pick the dominant eye. Step two, keep your head in the same spot. Now, when it comes to drawing from photos, a lot of that doesn't apply, but we'll still practice. Okay. The reason why is because a photo is already in 2D, right? And also stationary. Right? So you don't have the problem that when you're drawing real things, you're going like this, right? Okay, third thing. An exercise for today that you should try is film yourself while you're drawing. So just take your phone and do a 10-minute sketch, right? And film yourself the way like I'm doing right now. And, just try this during the week and see if you move around. Maybe like throw it into a quick video editor and make it and speed it up. And just film yourself. You're drawing something else, right? But see if you do this. And if you do, then you know, okay, I got to work on keeping my head still. Okay? All right. So now, number 3. So we have our eye, right? We got a dominant eye. We're keeping our head still. Now the next thing is lock your elbow. Lock the elbow. Right? You're going to do a bunch of measurements with your pencil. I'm going to show you how to do that. But those measurements are going to be completely pointless if you keep moving your pencil back and forth. Now, here's the thing. It totally doesn't matter where the pencil goes. The only thing that matters is that it's the same distance from your eye every time. Okay? So let's go here. I'm going to see if I can stand. Okay. Yeah. So see, what I'm trying to do, right, is I lock my eye. Let me go at a slight angle. Okay, I lock because I have long arms. So I lock my eye and I go like this. And then I'm going to make my finger go up and down. And the top of my finger, so the pencil tip, is my unit of measure. How much I'm measuring. So it's like that long or that long or this long or this long. Okay? But if you do this, suddenly this distance isn't accurate anymore. So the third mistake people make is they constantly move their arm back and forth. I'm not sure what causes that. I think it's like they go, oh, that thing is closer to me, so I'm going to do this. And that other thing is farther away, so I'm going to do this. But what you want is, boom, it's always there. Always straight ahead. Lock the arm, lock the arm. All right, so 3-step process to more accurate drawing. 1, what's your dominant eye? You determine your dominant eye by lock your arm, put your pencil on a point, anything. Okay, now, both eyes. If the pencil moves when you close an eye, that's the wrong eye. If it stays still when you close your eyes, then that's your dominant eye. Weirdly, there's some people where both eyes it moves. I think it's they have a condition where they can't actually move their eyes, or both eyes stay still. Sometimes that happens. All right. So step 2, head stays still. Don't move your head. And step 3, lock your arm. All right. Dominant eye, head still, lock arm. Believe it or not, just those 3 things will vastly improve your ability to like draw what you see. Okay. All right. Now, how to measure. Okay. So I'm going to try to do it with this drawing, but yeah, it's going to be weird. I'm going to show you what I'm measuring and then, yeah, because we're doing a digital drawing, so it's a little strange. Bob Ross. Okay, so how you measure something, right? There's a billion ways to measure what's going on in a drawing or a scene that you have. But I think probably one of the best ways to start off is called unit measurements. So a unit measurement is you pick something that is very accurate, that you can totally see very well. And then you measure that and get it on the paper in that one spot. And then what you do is you base everything else, all the measurements of that, as some ratio of that one unit. Okay? All right, so let's pick something that I can see. All right, so let's say like this. You know, we can probably say from here to here. So from this branch here, let's do it this way. This might not be the best, but let's see. Okay, let's look for a unit we can use. See, that kind of fades away, right? We want something that the edge is very clear, okay? And this isn't too bad, but it's kind of a curve. And then maybe that. Okay, so we're going to say like from, okay, so you see how you can see a horizon line there? Okay, we're going to go from there to that branch. Okay, so that's going to be our unit of measure. Right? We're going to measure that. We're going to get it on the paper. And then we're going to measure everything else based on that unit. Okay, so it's this edge right here. Now, ideally, you'd want to pick things where like you have a unit that's obvious, right? On people's faces, one eye is really good. So from here to here. Or from this part to the nose. Those two make up very good units. Right? Okay. So, and then a trick in landscape painting is get the horizon line down. So we're going to put the horizon line like here. I'm going to use the cheater tool. All right, there we go. We have our horizon line. Okay, now the next thing is, because we're using this, what's called relative measurement or unit measurement, it kind of doesn't matter where we put stuff. Everything will be, cohesive. It'll make sense as long as we keep that unit in mind and we always use it. So it may not match what's up in the scene, but as long as it's measured consistently in the drawing, it'll come out fine. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to take my pencil, close my eye, my bad eye. I want my dominant eye only. Keep my head in the same spot, right? Arm out. And then I want to measure that spot. I'm going to draw the spot again so we can see that. So we're going to measure from there to there, from the horizon line to that first little branch. That's what we're measuring. Okay, so you're going to do it like this. You take your pencil, you go like that, and then you're going to find from the tip of the pencil to here. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Now it's going to probably come out kind of weird because I'm literally like measuring in the air. And then you're going to go down to your drawing and you're going to try to replicate that distance. You got to kind of remember where it is. So now I'm putting and then it's going to be kind of right here. All right. That's what we want. So we want to go kind of right here. That's about how far it is. All right. So I'm going to check it again. I'm going to go put my finger there. Come down. Yeah, that's pretty close. Okay. Then the next thing is, so we know how high up it is, like how far it is. Now we got to figure out where is it like this, right? So where is it located in space this way on the other axis? So we've basically got this axis, but now we need this axis. So it's actually kind of like right about here. Okay, so my dot is going to be more like this. Okay, so to go from here to here, we have to do, and then, so we know it's kind of around here. Now all we have to do is figure out the angle. So you use the angle, again, lock, and you can turn your pencil, and let me back up. So you can turn your pencil like this to kind of get an angle, put it on the edge of the thing, and then go over to your paper. Keep your arm locked, keep your eye like this, close your bad eye, keep your head, go down, right? So I'm going to do that. I measure about there. It's about like that. Yeah, so I got it about right. Okay, so that's that one little part of the tree right there. And I'm using oil paint. You know, I'm just going to go with it. We'll consider it ink. Okay, so that's this piece right there. Now, what we do is we base everything else on that measurement. So we can then, what we do is we kind of recalibrate. We go, okay, and this is a good way to work because if you move back and forth, right, which is what beginners always do, right, is that it doesn't really matter if I'm back here, as long as I first get a calibration on my little piece, on my unit, and then go over, I say, okay, that thing is 1 unit high. That's all I have to do. So that's why it's good. Now there's another style that we'll learn later called side-sized, where moving around is the kiss of death. So that's way more, you have to like put tape on the ground. It's like way more involved, but it produces near perfect drawings and also something you can fix. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to figure out how far down from here to there it is, right? So, okay, so we take our measurement, take your pencil and measure your unit. You always remember what is your unit, and then measure the thing you want to measure. How much of the unit does it measure? And I'm going to say it's like maybe 80%. Okay. So now you go to your drawing, right? And you say, okay, my drawing's like that. So it's probably about this. And it's probably like right here. That's not really 80%. It's probably more like here. Yeah. Okay, so that's that edge of the tree. Okay, and then we're going to go how much of the unit makes up the base. So we want to do from here to here, right? So how much of this is that? Say the ratio, right? Okay, so we lock your arm, close your eye, head still. Go like that, get your unit. Now go down and go, it's like, yeah, it's like another 80% or so. Okay, so then you go to your paper, same thing, and it's probably like right here. Okay, so we have the base here, like that. Okay, and then we can sort of see that it has this little part right here, like that. So we can actually measure that in terms of our units. So let's take our unit up there. Okay, and how much of our unit? It's like half, and then actually the other part looks like half too. All right, so it's about half of our unit. So then we come down, measure from our paper, Okay. Yeah. So it's like just below the horizon line. So it's like right around here. It's kind of like this. And then actually it goes up to the horizon line. Interesting. Yeah, I can see the horizon line's like right here. Ah, so it's much more like this. And then this probably. And that's another thing. You can give yourself some help by using references. We know where the horizon line is, so we can relate things to it. Your accuracy, most people believe something is more accurate or not when things are related to each other correctly. Okay, so just remember that you can, even if something like isn't, you measure it wrong, but if you look in your scene, it's actually like connected to this other part. Just make the connection. Okay. All right, so we have that part. Okay, we can get rid of that. And then we want to get this up here, so we can actually measure that out using the unit, or we can use an angle, kind of figure where it's at. So using a unit, from there to there is another 80% or so. So it's going to be kind of like, if that's 80%, then it's going to be over here. Then we use an angle. Remember, get the angle like this. So I'm going to get an angle. Angle is about like that, say. And yeah, so it kind of goes up and goes from here. Now notice I'm doing all straight lines. Don't try to do the squigglies yet. You can come back and sort of like add like changes and stuff later, right? Okay, so now we want to get from here to here, right? So that part. So take our unit again. Keep your head still, close one eye, lock your arm, go there, okay, and then it's like, yep, like kind of another 80%, so go back to the paper and do about that, okay, so it's kind of like up here, I guess, about like right here, and angle is, yeah, it's about right. Okay. So slowly we're getting that tree drawn out. Now what you're going to find is as you get more information, it becomes easier to add more things because you can go, I know that branch is there and it's really just angled off this. So, okay, I can just use my pencil and figure out what is the angle from here to there, right? So we can do that right now. Or I can say, oh, I know where this part is. So if I want to find out where that tree is, I just go over from that tree, right? So let's do that. We're going to say, all right, so that tree, and I would take my pencil and I go, the tree is, yeah, it's kind of like on the same level as that bump, right? So I've got more information, so now I can relate things. So what I can do is I can say, okay, so from the bump right here, it's kind of over there. Okay, and then I go, okay, where is it vertically? Yeah, it's like there vertically and there vertically. Okay, so this is the tree. So that other tree is over here. Okay, and then how tall is it? Well, let's say we want to get just this crook of the tree. So you can measure over. It's kind of in the middle, but let's use our unit. So we're going to measure from here to here. Right, so okay, we go on lock arm, close eye, head still. Go like that, and from the tree, so I go over there on my unit, I go over to the tree. Yeah, it's like one unit all the way up to here, up to the top. So we can actually go grab our unit on the paper, right? Go to the tree. So kind of the top of the tree is about like around here. Make sure I got that right. Okay. So that's like up around there. Now that's not a very defined spot. So let's find this spot here. That part right there. Let me draw so it's obvious. We're going to find like around here, right? So using our unit, and also you can use other things too. Like I could use that edge, but we'll use the unit. Okay, so where is it in relation to the unit? I'm going to measure the thing and then go over to my unit. It's like half. So the crook of the tree is like half. So it's like there, right? What I did is I measured from here first, then went over to my unit to figure out where it is, right? So I'm going to go half on my unit. Think about right. Yeah, it's like right here. And it's probably like there. And on the other side. Okay, so then I can kind of draw this part in. And is it really like that tall? If I want to get like the top of that tree, it's pretty amorphous, right? Yeah, you know, it's more like it's up to there and then up to there. Yeah. It's more like up here. Yeah, and so see, that's kind of like two trees that are kind of like this, right? And then they're inside. Okay. Okay, so now we're getting like more and more information, more accurate, right? Okay. So that's the fourth part of like making your drawings more accurate. Find a unit, something really obvious that you can see, a nice crisp edge. Something straight would be even better, but you could use this, but that's a little too tall. This thing, maybe you could use that as a measurement. Okay, so you have a unit, you find it, you either measure the thing, lock your arm, measure the thing, then compare it to the unit, or measure the unit and compare it to the thing, go to your paper and do the same thing, measure the unit and then do the thing. The reason why I say that too, you have to readjust, is if you go up there and you measure and then your paper is like different angle, different part, something like that, you might not relate it to each other. Okay, so we've got that. Now, next thing, angles. So you can use angles to kind of get quite a lot of things right. Okay, so we're going to get these angles here, especially when it's like perspective lines. So perspective line is when something goes in like that. See how those go like that? And you kind of have another perspective kind of over here. We're just going to get these in. All right. Okay, so to do that, you kind of have to find where this point is. So how far is it from here to here? All right, so that's our first thing. From here to here. And then we're just going to use our pencil to figure out the angles. Okay, so from here to here. So we're going to measure that. Okay, again, lock arm, close eye, head still, like this. Okay, so we got our piece, and then we go over to the unit. It's like maybe 2/3 over. Okay, so then we go back down to our unit, find about 2/3, come over, and it's like right here. We have an add starting. Okay, now we're going to do an angle. So from that point, and then we translate straight down, and it's like this. If I could draw a straight line. And then do the other angle. So again, you're just rotating your pencil. Find the other angle, and it's kind of like that. Bring it down to your paper, and then match it. Okay, so now we're going to use angles to get the other two things. And we can then start, because we have a lot more information, we can sort of start using angles from one thing to another to get everything related, right? So we want to find this point here to that point there, right? So we're going to measure this over. You know, we can kind of guess that. That's fine. It's probably about like this. Because as you get more information in your drawing, you can start relating things better. Okay, and then we're going to do lock arm, close eye, head still, and it's kind of this angle. So figure out where it goes. It goes about like right here, I think. Okay, and because I am not very good at the digital pen, I'm going to cheat and do that. All right, and then the last one, this angle over there, we can kind of figure out where it is. It's sort of, it kind of disappears in there, but we're going to try to get it anyway, because it makes up this back edge. So we want this kind of back edge here. All right, so that is kind of almost very flat. Come down, and it goes to about like right here. Right, so we want to get that in too. About like that. Okay, yeah. was getting closer. Now remember, it's not going to be exactly the same as... Did I draw that? My eyes are messing with me. I swear that that line is not straight. Or maybe the photo is not straight. Yeah, does it seem like the photo is tilted? Weird. Okay. Anyways, doesn't matter. We're just going to relate it like that. Okay, so now we can start to figure out where is this edge here. So we can come over from here. So it's kind of, yeah, kind of in the middle of that. So from here to here, about. Yeah, it's like right about there. Okay. And then we can kind of just draw, let's see. You know, actually, it's like the tree is there. Yeah, you know, I think we're going to do this. We're going to say, I bet this is more over here. And it just goes to where the tree is. Yeah, let's make that correction. We're going to actually kind of have it go there. And then we're going to get rid of this. Okay, so that's more or less where that is. Okay, and yeah, kind of looks like that. We sort of just throw that in real quick. And then this, we can find out where that is. Yeah, that's on the upper side of there. So from there to there. Oh, interesting. Well, where's this then? That's at the tip of it. Did I put the tree in the wrong place? I bet the tree's in the wrong place. Interesting. Where's the tree? Oh, actually, it's like this, actually. It's more like this here. This comes off like that. Oh, man, that's terrible. Let's change that. Yeah, it's more like this. I'm going to knock my coffee over. Let me move that. So this is kind of what you got to do. You got to sort of like go, oh, wait, no, that's here. Yeah, this is actually here. Okay, it's more like that. And then this is kind of up here more. Like that. We can sort of do that. Let's see, is that going to get me somewhere? Yeah, that's about right. Now, keep in mind, in that part of the paint or the drawing, it's not too accurate, so you can kind of just sort of just kind of wing it in this area. Because like a lot of stuff is just going to be amorphous there, so we can kind of go like this. We're going to put some houses and stuff. And it's actually more up. Yeah. I keep making it more severe than it should be. It's more like, yeah, from over here. All right. Okay, so that's kind of the ground plane solved. And then we have this crosswalk here. That crosswalk's kind of over here. You can't really see it. Kind of goes over there. That comes up here. All right, now we're going to measure the branches, the tree, right? Now here's the thing. You could, for practice, you could go in and measure each of these and try to figure out where they go. We'll do this one big one, right? What we really want to do is kind of measure sort of an envelope, right? Because we can kind of invent any branches and stuff we want. We don't have to get every branch. What we really want is we want to kind of measure this, right? And then we can sort of, if we want, we can measure these, but we're just going to kind of invent branches inside there. But we want to get sort of the proportion of the tree sort of figured out. And this will help when you get into painting, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to, first, let's get this branch going. So this branch should be right there. Yeah, so it's this right here. Yeah, I think it's there. Yep. Okay, we want to go up to there. So we can either figure out where it is vertically, like this. We can use an angle like that. We can just use an angle like this. So we can say, okay, it goes from here to here. Right, so we're going to do that. We're going to go from here to here. Lock your arm, close your eye, head still. All right, it's about like that. So it kind of is like this. Yeah, I need to practice digital way more. Yeah, how do you do that? What is my problem? Why is that? I guess you have to do this with your arm. With the paper, you just turn it. Okay, close enough. There we go. All right, so now we can actually then do what's called a plumb line. We drop a line. So dropping a line from here to there. It's kind of like in the middle of the thing, so it's kind of go out to here. So I kind of want it to go up to about there. All right, so that's sort of where the branch has to go, and then it's going to angle up. And remember, our drawing's not exactly the same shape as the photo. I think ours is a little shorter. Yeah, so we want to kind of make it this, like that angle. So it's going to go up about like that. And then, yeah, then we can kind of just put that in. And then you can sort of kind of eyeball how thick it is. Because remember, once you get some information, you can kind of relate everything to it. And make adjustments. I think my curve is wrong on there. Hold on. Let me redo that. I don't like that. Yeah, actually I think I'm going to make it a bit more like this. There. Okay. All right, so that's that first branch. And then we want to get the rest of this other side. So we can go, let's see, it goes up there and then like this. So I just used the pen to kind of figure out where that is. Okay, so we now have sort of the envelope for the tree. And what's nice about trees is you can just make up any shit you want inside there, right? There's a lot of tricks to make trees look right, you know, like you got to make things the what they call the sky holes. You got to make them darker than you think. Weird things like that. But for now, we can just kind of like eyeball the rest of the tree because we sort of now can relate it. So I know like, okay, it's got like something like this. There's a trunk that goes along here. Goes like that. Right? Because nobody's really going to actually know. Like I said, just don't show them the photo. Right? There's also these weird pedantic losers who are like, you didn't get the photo right. Ah, I should show you a technique though. Grids. No, well actually, when we cover site size, we're going to kind of make a grid. But grids have been used for like hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Yeah, grids is a good way to do it. If you got to be crazy accurate. But that's like another separate technique. There's actually totally a way to do that. But if you're doing digital, if you're at a point where you're doing grids, just trace the image. It's just a bother. Even a grid is like, whatever. You're going to trace the image, trace the image. Okay, so we have an envelope, right? We have our measurements. Let me show you one more trick, okay? So I want to draw these trunks, right? Well, what I can do, and this is kind of a weird thing, if I draw everything that's not trunk, so if I draw these shapes, it'll actually probably come out looking better. So instead of drawing this trunk here, I just drew this inside. So let's try to do some of that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw that shape inside here. So it's kind of like this and that. So it's called negative drawing. You draw the negative space instead of the thing. Yeah, kind of about there and then up here. And like that. That's there. Yeah, like this. And then that kind of goes off the screen. So I just leave that. And then we have a branch that comes over here. So what I did is I just did a drawing of, instead of the branch, I did a drawing of this inside. And then this inside. Because abstract shapes you can kind of get right when you draw like the sky holes and stuff. Okay, we can draw this. Let's go ahead and get that. So it kind of comes off. And again, our drawing is a little different size. And that's fine, because when you use a unit to do your drawing, you use a unit measure style. It's not going to exactly match. It's more like, does it work within the context of the drawing? Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, so now let's go get this tree. And so what we want to do is kind of get the first idea. So it kind of comes up to there. So what we're going to do is we're going to see, where is this edge? We're going to kind of do a sort of an envelope around this. So we want to figure out this. Kind of those, right? Because they're pretty amorphous over there. Like amorphous means you can't really see it, right? Okay, so where is this? We're just going to sort of measure in this point. Yeah, so where is that? Okay, cool. We're going to measure from here to here. Let's see, from this to there, where is that? So we're going to go, we already know this point, so from here to here. And then we're going to come up and see how far it is. Okay, so from here to here. All right, so we're going to go from there to there. What is that? And how does that match my unit? Oh, it's like exactly my unit. Okay, so then we go to the drawing, find the unit. Okay, it's like right here. And again, what it is, I measured from here to here and then compared it to from there to there, right? I'd use so I measured from here to here and then I compared it to my unit. That doesn't seem like the same. Did I measure that wrong? Yes, it looks like I did. Hold on. From the sidewalk. Yeah. Yeah, so from the sidewalk. Yeah, okay, so I've got to measure from the same point. From there to there. It's like more like here. We'll split the difference. I think it's going to be about there. It is a tree, so we don't have to actually give a shit about where it is. So it's on this line, and then we got to find about out there. So it's probably, yeah, it's probably just over from this. So right here. Okay, so this is sort of that point on the envelope. So what we can do then is we can kind of just sort of draw in. And we can sort of like, we'll just like do this rough kind of sketch like this. What we're going to do is we're going to use cross-hatching instead of drawing every leaf. And I'll get this drawing more or less done, and then we'll do the cross-hatching next session. Or you can just kind of do it yourself. Yeah. All right, cool. Because remember, this is going to have sky holes and stuff like that. And we can kind of get a bit more there. We don't want to draw too much because we're going to invent sky holes and stuff. Okay, so now there's some stuff along here, but let's get the sunshine. So we can kind of, when you have things on the horizon line, you can just sort of like, you just want to make them look varied, right? You don't have to be accurate with that. So I'm going to get the stuff on the horizon line. And in fact, you want to lie about a lot of this. You want to make it look not the same. So if it was like all flat, I would alter it. Okay, and then it kind of comes up through here. Comes down here, and then we can sort of like kind of put in the houses. I go up to about there. Okay, and then we're going to get the sunshine. And we can sort of eyeball it now. But if we want, we can measure it. And then there's some clouds kind of here. See, as you get more info, now you can kind of just sort of like just draw, right? We know that the clouds kind of like that. And this is probably always going to annoy you. I know it always annoys me. Things on the very far edge, especially from a photo, right? Because cameras have a distortion. If you're out there really drawing, you would definitely be able to do it how you see it. And do that. Okay, so now we have the drawing, right? keep in mind a couple things, right? So first off, this is not the most accurate style. The most accurate style is sight size, and there's another style that's very accurate called block-in style. But we'll do sight size. Sight size has some big advantages for people learning to draw. But if you look, everything is it's close enough. Yeah, it's close enough. I think I would make this tree a little smaller, right? You then would come in and kind of give it some character. So I'm going to go like this. And then you start doing the shading. Right? You would get rid of any kind of edges you don't want, like that. Any lines like this. Make it look less like kind of straight blocks. Like that. Clean this up. And then you just get into cross-hatching it. So I'm using kind of an ink, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, it's kind of better. And I won't do the whole thing, but I'll just show you. Yeah, we probably want these to be... Now this scene is what you call backlit. So backlit scenes are really nice, but if you're doing watercolor, watercolor is like the king of backlit scenes. But doing backlighting is kind of a pain in the ass. The general idea with backlighting is everything that's facing you is going to be very dark, and then along the edges where the light is, we'll have like a bright spot, right? But in this case, it's more like this is just very dull gray. Yeah, like pretty much all of this becomes. And I'm not using pencil, I'm actually using, this is oil paint, but it looks like ink. Okay, so then let me show you how to do the sky holes. Well, you know, actually let's save this for the next session. Next session we're going to see how to actually shade this whole thing and do cross-hatching to make it work. Also, yeah, so it's stuff like this. That's pretty amorphous. I would just erase it and then just kind of just do a little light line like that. It's all going to get shaded out. And then this is fine. That's there. Just want to make sure there's nothing that's really annoying. And that, yeah, we can probably get this palm tree in. Some of these. Kind of go like that. Okay, less is more, so don't do any more detail. All right, so that's this one. Let's do we'll stop there. So that's measurement, right? Let's recap how to do measurement. And again, so if you've been following my series, one, you want to do contour drawing every day. You want to do a contour drawing, then you want to shade it. You want to be doing value strips, but I think you should be at a point where the value strips are kind of becoming annoying. So when you're very bored of value strips, that means you've done enough, right? Okay, and then you want to do the sketching style where you were kind of just, you pick a thing and you just touch. It's not really measuring. It's more just like, I think it's about here. I think it's about here. You're kind of using what you learned from contour drawing to feel where stuff is at. So now we're going to do measurement. Okay. And you're going to use the unit style of measurement. Okay. So unit style is you pick one thing that you can clearly see in what you're drawing. So on a face, it's usually like an eye or the nose, whichever one you can see, and then you relate everything to that. So you say, oh, okay, the eye is this big, so the nose is this many, right? Or the whole head is this many eyes, right? And then As you get more information, you initially start with just a couple little marks, and then you can start using angles to say, well, if this is here and it's at an angle to there, that means it's over here, right? Because what you're doing is you relate everything in the drawing to itself, and you use angles to kind of get perspective right. So you put the pencil, kind of close your eye, lock your arm, keep your head, and then you rotate your pencil. You go, okay, so the building is like, it's kind of doing that. So that's the edge of the building, right? One thing, when you're measuring, when you're doing angles of those things, one thing that beginners always do, always. Let me just get in position there. Okay, so when I'm doing my angles, I'm looking at it from the side, right? When I do my angles, I do this. I don't do that, okay? I don't point it forward. What you as a human constantly think in 3D all day long. So you want to measure this thing here. You try to measure that there. It's in 3D space. So you go, okay, I'm going to find the angle. And then you start pointing the pencil at it, right? But you want to find an angle on a 2D plane. Okay, so that's why I say hold your hand like this, right? See how I'm holding it like that. Because it's harder to point. You're going to feel weird doing this and go, oh, yeah, that's right. I want to do this. And then you rotate it. Now, one other way to fix that is put it on the paper first, right? So set it down on the paper. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah. So set it down on a piece of paper, right? And we get in position. Okay. Set it on the paper, then bring it up. Put it on the paper, then bring it up. And that'll make sure that you're always on that flat plane, right? Another way to do it is think about you are putting your hand on a piece of glass and you're kind of measuring what's in the piece of glass. It's all about just kind of tricking your brain into thinking about it wrong, basically. Okay? So to recap the measurement style, 1, find your dominant eye. You find your dominant eye by opening both eyes, point a pencil at something, holding it there. Okay? Put the tip of the pencil on the thing, look at the thing, and put the tip of the pencil on it. Now close one eye. If it does not move, that's your dominant eye. Close the other eye. If it does move, that's your bad eye. Don't use that eye to draw. So you stick with your dominant eye. Usually it's the same one as your hand. So usually if you're right-handed, it's your right eye. But find your dominant eye. And everybody out there who's like, my pencil doesn't move. Don't look at the pencil, look at the thing. And put the pencil between you and the thing. Because if you look at the pencil, it actually still moves. But there's just some people where, like, I think their eye is off or something. It doesn't move if they look at the pencil. Anyways, point 2 of getting better accurate drawing. Don't do this. Okay? People do that because we're 3D people. We have 2 eyes and we work in 3D. So when you want to measure that tree, you're going to look around the tree. But you have to stay still. You got to think, my head is a camera. My head is a camera. My head is a camera. Keep still. When you're doing it from a photo, that doesn't happen as often because the photo is already 2D, 3D. But when you try to go and draw something outside, like a landscape or in your room, do an interior. That's another good one. You're going to do this all the time. So head still. Good eye, dominant eye. Lock the arm. You want the pencil to be the same distance from your eye every time. Every time. What'll happen is when you measure something close to you, you'll do this. When you measure something far from you, you do that. No, lock eye, lock arm. And also lock the hand. So when you measure angles, you'll do fine when you measure how long something is. But the second you measure one of those perspective lines, you're going to do that. You're going to point it. Don't do that. Just hold that like that. That's why I do this with my hand. Because then trying to point it is weird. Okay. And I kind of do this. All right. Okay, so that's how you measure. Then just go out and start measuring things. And remember, don't trust your eyes. Always measure. Just measure first. And then as you get better and better, or as you get more information, you can kind of like go, oh, well, if this is how big that is, then these branches are probably over here like that. Oh, and this one is probably like this because it's related to that. Right? Then as you build your drawing, you get more information to do angles, to do relationships, and so on. Okay? Okay. That concludes the drawing lesson for today. I'm actually going to pack these up and throw them on a YouTube account so people can actually watch the whole series. And I think what I might do is I might do this first set is kind of like before we start doing site size, because site size drawing is like a whole series on its own. Site size drawing is more complex, but actually easier for people who are just starting out. So I'll pack these up. I think I'm just going to do it as like one big 5-hour video. That way you can like just kind of go and like watch it as you need to and find your section. So I'll let everybody know when that's up. All right, everybody. I will leave this up for a little bit. If you're doing this drawing, then go ahead and kind of finish it. And yeah, and if, you know, again, your drawing will probably look about like that. And then if you want, you can take the next step and try to do the cross hatching using your values. In this scene, yeah, a lot of stuff is just going to be like very dark. So just do your best. It's not the best for shading, but we'll try and do it, because you're trying to get this effect. This lighting effect is pretty tough. It's kind of hard to do that. Like in oil paint, I would know how to do that, but or watercolor, I could do it. Pastel and pencil. Yeah, we'll see. It'll be an experiment for both of us. Yeah.